you're seeing, what Kyle and his mom believed was a call to action for white nationalists to come and defend businesses, right? And the FBI just released new surveillance because they weren't there to surveil Kyle. No, the FBI during this time, during that great unrest in America because of what happened to George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, they were surveilling black activists. But it just so happened, because they were surveilling us, they got this on video.
This is Dr. Curry.
This is Kobe Owens.
And welcome to The Source. Kobe, all I can say is another shot, another shot, another shot, another shot. Every week we come on the air, it's someone got shot in the city of Wilmington. On Monroe Street just this week, an individual was shot. What's going on with all of these shootings?
Yeah, again, I think, we've talked about it a lot. We continue to bring it up. The city of Wilmington is still dealing with a gun violence issue. It's something that Councilman Jay Street has talked about is where's the plan? And it seems as though this is going to continue to happen. It's going to continue to plague our city until there is a plan that's not only put together, but actually implemented to really start getting to the root cause of what's causing all this shooting here.
Yeah, and I guess the question I would ask those who view us and those who are watching us, when will you put the pressure on the mayor's office? When will we as a community put the pressure? We're trying to bring you credible news, but every week we come back and we talk about more gun violence on top of more gun violence, and it is in our community. For those of you who may not live in the same neighborhood where a lot of the violence is going on, you still have a responsibility because it won't be long before it's in your community. Where is the plan?
Right.
That's what we really want the answer to. And the responsibility of responding to that is the mayor's office. We also say the city council as well, but the mayor's office is the one who really does the legislation, or I guess you would call it the legislative side of it. And we just really need to know, where is the plan to help curb the violence, and how is the chief of police still floating easy?
Yeah, exactly. And, a little more details about this. It's a 29-year-old man. He was in critical condition when taken to the hospital. And this happened in the 400 block of North Monroe Street. Again, you see a pattern. It's all across the city. So that falls on our citywide electeds. It stops at the mayor. But also his chief of police. He was brought in, was given a raise when he was brought here, given another raise recently, and we still haven't seen a drastic drop. Now, yes, 2018 we did, but that seems to be an outliner among the other 5 years this administration has been in office.
Yeah, so he got a raise, and incompetence is at an all-time high because there is no productivity based off of what has been done. We see all too often, I think, we tend to praise people for what they did do right. But if you did 10 things wrong, why are we still giving you credit for the one thing you did right? Just as it is in sports, you may have had a winning season. Matter of fact, the Eagles won the Super Bowl, but it wasn't there far after that they fired their coach when you had a bad season. Yeah. I think that we really need to figure out and hope, not so much we, but the mayor need to figure out what he's going to do with the violence in the city.
I agree with you. And we have a long way to go.
Yeah.
And my heart goes out to the families who've been affected by gun violence, for those who live in these communities who've been affected by gun violence or just been in the vicinity of gun violence. Yeah. It has a long-term effect, psychological effect, physical effect on people. And this is something that truly matters to a lot of people here in the city of Wilmington.
Yeah. Well, we hope that we next week we'll come back and won't have any shootings at all. Maybe the mayor will wave his magical wand that he has, and there'll be no more violence. But also, it also extended this week even into the county. We've been told that there's the police that have identified a gentleman by the name of Dorian Wilson in the back of a gas station who was shot dead, and somebody allegedly saw some of it, but I don't know if you know anything about that.
Yeah, again, the gun violence, especially all across America since the pandemic, has spiked.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to hear about more and more gun violence in Newcastle County and Dover, outside of the city of Wilmington.
Right.
And I think, one, that is good that we're seeing it in the media because it's something that's been happening for a long time. But again, this seems to be an issue that they're just letting go by the wayside. I don't know how an elected official can go out and ask for votes, but can't actually follow through on some of their campaign promises.
Because, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think one of the reasons why is because they understand that there's apathy within the African American community, and as long as you give them a fish sandwich and not teaching them to fish, that this is what will happen. But one of the purpose of us having the segment of our show called The Silent Storm is that we have to start holding them accountable and continue to talk about it, so when November comes, it won't be a new voice just trying to start trouble, but it's just all the way along the way. You're right. It is unbelievable that they can easily look you in your face and say, vote for me, and have not delivered on the promises of their campaign. Because one of the things we're going to do is we're going to talk about all the promises of these campaigns.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, and I think that's a huge step for us. Is to hold them accountable for what they're saying. No longer can we let that go by the wayside. And it's us who are being affected by this gun violence at a disproportional rate. I am so tired of seeing another black person in the open because of gun violence.
Yeah, it's just a sad reality. But in the local news, both in the county and in the city, we see that violence continues, and we're not even reporting the other violence. We're just reporting the gun violence, and it's swamping the news to a level. And we know it's a national thing going on, and I don't want to seem like I'm being unfair even to the city of Wilmington, but I just been asking for one thing. You can't always solve. I think it was Jim Baker who said you can't arrest your way out of it. He's correct. However, you got to come up with a plan. A plan is how we get to the end or see what we're doing and whether or not it's working. So I don't know. So I'm going to kind of leave it there for the local news on this week and just say, look, we'll be right back. And we're back. This segment of our show is really dealing with the national news and some follow-up items. Kobe, I just want to be careful not to be too emotional, but have you heard about the Kyle Rittenhouse situation where this young man has now pleaded not guilty? And our producer asked a question, and I'm going to let you share what you're going to share, but he asked the question, what does it mean when you can see all the things we saw, and he still pleads not guilty? My answer, very simple, is that he knows that he will get a jury that will find him not guilty.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I think, one, to remind people who Kyle is. Yeah. Kyle was a 17-year-old boy whose mom got him a gun. They drove across county lines during the protest last year, and he killed two victims.
Right.
He killed 2 people
Yes.
who were protesters, who were peaceful protesters.
Well, who, according to the judge, you could not say that.
Right.
They were rioters and
Exactly.
looters.
But not only that, the judge is saying that they were not proven to be just peaceful protesters,
Right.
but they were also not proven to be
right.
looters and rioters.
Absolutely.
But it's funny how that works,
Yes.
right? But in this case, you're seeing, what Kyle and his mom believed was a call to action for white nationalists to come and defend businesses, right? And the FBI just released new surveillance
Yes.
because they weren't there to surveil Kyle. No, the FBI during this time, during that great unrest in America because of what happened to George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, they were surveilling black activists. But it just so happened, because they were surveilling us, they got this on video.
Right.
So in this new, never before seen video, you see what Kyle is doing right before the fatal shooting.
Wow.
You see him going into a parking lot and going around the corner, and then you see all the movement going on. It's from above, right? And this is another thing that people were talking about. This was something that was also in the George Floyd Justice for Policing Act, was they use all this technology, UAV drones and everything, to monitor us, but they let white nationalists storm the Capitol. They let white nationalists walk the streets of Charlotte, North Carolina, and do nothing.
Absolutely.
But when peaceful black people gather, it's an issue. So this case is going to highlight that. He shot 3 people, killing 2 of them.
That's right.
17 years old. And I guarantee you, this jury is going to go in his favor some way, somehow.
Well, when you got first of all, the jury does not reflect the community they are in. Okay.
Correct.
30% of that community is African American. One juror out of the 11 is African American. The rest are white, and all of the alternates are white. He knows, as our producer asked, why would he plead not guilty? He knows he's not going to be found guilty. But this goes a little bit further. I heard you talk about, how when white nationalists do things, they don't try to monitor them. But this young man was able to obtain the best lawyer money could buy from his region.
Yes.
His first fundraiser raised how much money?
His fundraiser, just GoFundMe, one of those online platforms, raised over $2 million.
Who do you think was behind that?
Oh, they know who was behind it. White nationalists donated. Proud white nationalists donated to it. People who are Proud Boys donated to it. Cops donated to it. Because they believe he was deputized in their mind to protect them, because Black Lives Matter is anti-cop in their minds. You have this young guy murdered 2 people, and because he's white, they're all running to defend him. It reminds me a lot of what happened down with Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman. But this is what we have to deal with, and this is what we see wrong with the system. And in the video, you can clearly see the 2 men who are killed, or 2 of the men who were injured in this shooting. You can see their movement. You can see them running and everything. Right. So it's a very graphic video.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, if you just give me a second, we're going to go ahead and let our producer show those who are watching us this video, and we'll come right back.
We have more tonight from CNN's Adrian Broadus. And again, a warning, some of the video you're about to see is graphic.
As Kyle Rittenhouse looked on, prosecutors played video after video of the gunshots that started a night of horror. First, a single shot. Then 7 more. The shooting and what happens next have Rittenhouse facing life in prison for the worst of 5 felonies. First-degree intentional homicide. Both sides agree Joseph Rosenbaum was the first Rittenhouse killed, but the defense jumping in to make clear their client didn't fire the first shot heard on the video.
But Mr. Washington, there was a first shot, which was not Mr. Rittenhouse's shot.
Instead, all sides agree a third person fired that first shot. The defense questioning an eyewitness who live-streamed the incident to make its point that Rittenhouse was not an aggressor.
You described Rosenbaum as acting erratic. right?
From all of the moments that I was around that you can notice, yes.
You describe Rosenbaum as erratic, and if this is fair, and Rittenhouse as chain smoking. Yes?
I suppose you could say nervous, I guess, would be a fairer way to say it.
But prosecutors say this grainy FBI aerial surveillance video will show Rittenhouse did move toward Rosenbaum, while the defense says it shows Rosenbaum hid behind cars before chasing Rittenhouse, who opened fire. The most graphic of the videos showing the moment Rosenbaum was shot 4 times.
And before we go on with our conversation regarding that, I did make an error in my comments. I said that there were 11 jurors who were white, and 10 who were white and 1 who was black. That was a mistake on my part. I didn't mean to say that. That's dealing with the Ahmaud Arbery's case. But with this case, we did get an opportunity to see that there were 11 women, 9 men who are part of the jury pool, and they chose not to share the racial breakdown, which is another way of hiding what they are really trying to do. But let's just go back to this, and I want to make that correction, but let's just go back to the fact that this young man did what he did, and what are the charges that he's facing?
Yeah, the most serious charge is first-degree homicide. Again, he killed 2 people, 2 26-year-olds, 2 men, and then injured a young lady as well too. So this is a very serious incident that I don't think the charges really add up to. Okay. And I think you see what happened in Kenosha, and this this came about because of what happened to Jacob Blake. Now Jacob Blake was shot by the police, and he survived. And he's telling his story, something we usually do not get to hear of what truly happened. And we have body cam footage and video footage of it as well too, and you have the actual victim alive. And why this story is unique to Delaware is because Jacob's father is going to be coming here on November 13th. He's going to be joining Reverend Al Sharpton at the Wilmington Library at 11 a.m. to talk about police brutality. They're both coming here because of what happened to Lamont Moses on January 13th and what's going on with legislation and how people are holding up that legislation when it deals with Leopold and being able to hold officers accountable for their actions here.
Now tell me the time of that on the 13th, which is this coming Saturday.
Yes.
Now, what time, do you know the time that he's going to be there?
Yes, from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Because I think that this is a very serious issue when dealing with police brutality and also the cover-up and who they cover in order to do what they do. And as you look through the news journal of this week about police are looking for more information on people who have committed crimes and they can't get the information, it's because they choose and pick who they want to support and who they want to harm. But is there any other information you want to share on that on this whole case?
So it's not just those 2 coming. The aunt of Breonna Taylor will also be joining us. And then local activists will all be lifting up the voice of the Moses family with his wife Amanda and his sister and mother all being there as well too. So we definitely look forward to the event, and please everyone come out, hear about what's going on with Leopold, hear about what you can do to help these families who suffered the ultimate price, which is losing their loved ones.
And one of the things that we probably should try to do as well is to get some footage of that so that we can try to share it on this show as well, because I think that will help. It may be some snips here, snips there. That will help us to get the word out. Our viewership is getting stronger, and I want to make sure that people are aware of all that is going on, because our whole goal is to expose that which is wrong. Yeah, but I gave the data for Ahmaud Arbery, and I do want to talk about that because now it's time for that case. They just finished with their jury and having only 1 African American out of the whole jury pool. And in the jury pool there was many more, but they kept striking them. But what stunned me is that the judge was very clear. He said, listen, it appears that some discrimination has occurred, and he kind of agreed that there was some, but he said it's going to continue to go on because legally they did everything right.
No, and he clearly said it in court, which is record,
Rare.
right? It's very rare. And he pretty much said the defense appears to be discriminatory in their selecting process. Again, this speaks to the ability the courts have for justice, and that the defense was able to get rid of so many African Americans, where this neighborhood, this community is made up overwhelmingly of African Americans. So it's not a jury of his peers, it's a jury of his like-minded folk.
Yeah, and that's what's really happening, because to my understanding, I think it's 35% of that community is African American, and yet he's not going to be able to get a fair trial. Our producer asked another question, and I'll throw it out there, and I'll see whether or not you are interested in trying to tackle it. And that is, what if he's found not guilty? What type of ramifications do you think is going to happen to across the country?
Yeah, I think it'd be on the same level as the George Floyd case, to be honest. People want to see justice. People are tired of officers and individuals getting off for killing black people.
Yeah.
And again, the court system isn't made for us.
Right.
And people get upset about that. You saw it in the face of the judge during the Derek Chauvin case.
Yeah.
He was nervous to read their verdict.
Right.
And you saw that little, that sigh of relief when he first opened it up and read it. And then he went on and continued on when he knew it was going to be guilty on all counts. Now this, I don't think is going to be guilty. I think they're going to get off. And that's going to cause uprising. And it's going to start in Atlanta. And you're going to see other cities join in solidarity, but also to say, we have cases happening in our city right here, and they're not getting the attention that they deserve.
Right. But what's going to happen is when uprisings occur, it's going to be a plea, a call for us to calm things down, when in actuality we're not doing anything to show that, we can't have this type of violence here, we can't have this type of situation going on in our city and our state, when all the times we are being discriminated against, we're being treated as if we really don't matter.
Yeah, and this case is going to be a cautionary tale for conversations that be had for a long time to come. I think it's very clear that anyone who's in the justice system can see the racial overtones of this case and of this jury selection.
Yeah, remind the viewers a little bit, once again, on who is Aubrey, because that's important to continue to lift up who he was. So
in 2020, you had 3 main cases that sparked uprising. And George Floyd was the last. Breonna was the middle one. But Ahmaud was the first one. Right. And Ahmaud was taking a jog through his neighborhood, and they were building a construction site. And he stopped in to look. Now the thing is, multiple people do that. Right. Multiple people had done that at that site. But because he was a black man, these 2 white individuals decided they couldn't allow that. He must be trying to steal something off a construction site while running, and left with nothing in his hand. So they chased him down. And another individual, their neighbor, followed them and recorded everything, encouraging them. And they used their firearms to kill Ahmaud as he tried to get away, saying, "What are y'all doing? I'm not doing nothing." But they took it to become vigilantes and killed this young man. And what happened then was the cops did not arrest them.
Wow, yes.
The prosecutor, the DA for the area, did not want to prosecute them. And now she's under indictment for her involvement of misuse of her powers in that trial. So you have a lot going on in this case. And I'm glad that we're finally getting to the trial portion. But let me just be clear, Ahmaud is not on trial.
That's right.
He's dead.
Right.
Because of their actions.
That's right.
And these guys all belong behind bars.
But because of even the cover-up, I just hope and trust that it does happen. They do go to jail, that the message is sent very clear.
Yeah.
And if it is not sent clear, there will be a price that has to be paid. But I just feel so bad. I wanted you to remind the people who he is, who he was, because again, he's not on trial, but a life has been lost
Right.
at the hands of racism. People who felt entitled to do what they did. And he videoed the neighbor videoed the whole thing, egging them on, videoed the whole thing as if to say it doesn't matter. We're going to show you what you do with a Negro when he jogs through our neighborhood, when we know he had to have been stealing or something of that nature. It's really not good. Well, those are the two items that I wanted to cover in our national news, but I do want to remind everybody and tell everybody on the good news side of it is that the COVID, or should I say the coronavirus vaccination for children 5 to 11 has now been approved, so that will help us in our school system, that will help us with our children. And I'm so glad I talked to my daughter last night, and I said, listen, now that it is available for you, you're going to go get your shot. And she said she's ready, although she said I'm not ready, but she's ready. But so Daddy is saying she's ready.
Yeah.
And we're going to make sure that we protect her.
Yeah. So, again, the CDC on November the 2nd, they finally had the thumbs up and the approval for the Pfizer vaccine for 4 to 11. And that's going to be huge, right?
Yes.
It's one of the reasons why there's still a mask mandate for schools is because there's so many school-age children who are unprotected. So this is going to be a good step. But we cannot let it fall by the wayside like we did once we started getting our vaccines. We have to make sure that there's that mass and herd immunity, so that those who are highly susceptible to the disease, to the virus, can be properly protected.
Yeah, I just hope we don't have we have made a political mockery out of this whole vaccination process and this whole coronavirus. And, Donald Trump and his followers are really to be blamed for this. But I hope that every parent who's watching today, because I know that there are many people, even in our community, who have not yet been vaccinated, but we cannot allow our children to suffer. They're going to be here for a while. Some of the lasting effects of COVID that can cause our young people to have once if they catch it, it's just devastating. And I think you need to move forward. We get vaccinations for everything else. This needs to happen. And even though my daughter first said she was ready and then she said she wasn't ready, she's 10 years old. Daddy is going to make that decision for her. Mommy is going to make that decision for her, because we need to make sure that she's protected. She don't know what is safe and what is not. We are the safeguards. And at this point, I don't want my daughter to wind up with COVID and then have a long-lasting effect that will cause her to be lamed in some area of her life.
Right. And the reason, and I've heard this question a lot, well, if it was approved for adults, why wasn't it approved for children? Right? Our bodies are different.
Absolutely.
Our immune systems are different.
Yeah.
So the pediatric version of this vaccine, 4 to 5 to 11, underwent a very long, a very carefully process, and it's going to continue to undergo this process as well too, to make sure it's the most safe option for children. And again, the reason why this is so important is it will help protect them from getting coronavirus and COVID-19 period, but also reduce the severity, if they do catch it, the severity of some of the effects of it, the long-term effects, the hospitalization. So that's why it's so important. Just like the flu shot helps you fight it. It does not say you will not get it at all, but it helps you with your recovery and making sure you're still here to live another day.
Yeah, someone called me, Kobe, and said, Pastor Curry, well, at my home for Thanksgiving, if you come in for dinner at our house, you have to have been vaccinated. So one of my relatives called me and said, Chris, I know 2 people who were vaccinated and they died. And you know what I said to him? I know 5 million people who were not vaccinated and they died.
Right.
How about we just look at the difference in the numbers? He know 2, I know 5 million. I'm saying to you, the safest route we have today is to be vaccinated.
Yes.
We'll be right back.
I'm getting vaccinated against COVID-19. Yes, there could be some short-term side effects from the vaccine, but they go away in a day or two. Those are signs that my body's building protection. It's worth it to avoid serious problems from COVID-19 disease.
And we're back. We now turn our attention to the part of the show that deals with the silent storm. As we are seeing things boiling up, at some point there will be a boiling point. But today last week we shared with you some of the damnable things that happened at the very first council meeting with swearing in ceremony, as well as the rules and things of that nature. And we tried to show you those individuals who we consider are in the pocket, who are just there. There's 7 votes he definitely have so that he can get his agenda across. And we also talked about how people are being blackballed when they don't agree with what the mayor wants or the mayor's administration wants. And we're beginning to start to see and show some more things that we want you to see, because we're going to talk about, Brother Kobe, just Resolution 0018, which is really one of the first pieces of a resolution or legislation that they put together. And when I went through it, Kobe, it appears to me that this is not a new piece of legislation.
Correct.
This is an old one, and that the city council under this administration fought it. Mm-hmm. They fought it and said, nah, this is not what we're going to do, because it will harm the black community more than any other community.
Correct.
But it came back in a different form under a different person who's a part of the 7, I call it the 7 tribes of Israel. But they came back and they brought it a different way. So help me to understand, the best of your knowledge, what is this resolution 0018 about?
Yeah, so the heart of this bill is to revise our housing code here in the state, here in the city of Wilmington, and do it in a way that it shifts the code enforcement for rental properties from criminal court to a civil process. Mm-hmm. And they're saying that this will, one, speed up the enforcement process, mm-hmm. And then also it would add fines up to $250 a week, mm-hmm. for your whatever your fine is, mm-hmm. So shutters, whatever, for your house, for not being fixed, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, at that point, once it hits a certain point, they can put a lien on your house, right. And take it to sheriff's sale and take it back. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a few issues people have with this bill. Mm-hmm. And I want to say this first. If you truly want to address blight, you have to start in your own backyard.
Thank you.
Right?
Yes.
The city owns a huge portion, yes. of these vacant properties already. Mm-hmm. These vacant properties do a few things. One, they make the neighborhood look bad. Mm-hmm. 2, they attract rodents. Mm-hmm. 3, they attract homelessness. Mm-hmm. We've had a few incidents happen where there's been a homeless individual in a home. Mm-hmm. The neighbors have been complaining. That individual is cold, and they start a fire. That fire has then, accidentally engulfed the entire house, mm-hmm. and then affect the house next door. Mm-hmm. This even happened with Representative Bowden's house, her childhood house, mm-hmm. and it was in the paper about her talking about the issues like this. Mm-hmm. One, if you want to address this issue, very good, start renovating, mm-hmm. these properties
that they already own.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Beautify them.
They being the city.
Yes.
Just want to make sure that we are clear.
Yes. Beautify them. Mm-hmm. Make them nice.
Yeah.
And then I'm more progressive. I say, because Wilmington holds almost 60% of the state's homeless population, start seeing if we can get people in these houses to stabilize these neighborhoods, mm-hmm. and get them in the proper program so that they can become homeowners. Mm-hmm. Or look at how we can revitalize neighborhoods, mm-hmm. by creating programs that if you fix up these houses, that you get a deferment plan, whether it's for student loans and bring in teachers, and then teachers live in their communities, or firefighters, or whatever. Do it like that.
Sounds good.
Right? But after years of what the mayor wanted, which at one point, at the very beginning of this process, it had homeowners would be getting fined on the same level, the landlords, and everyone, right? That wasn't going to work. How are you going to go after a homeowner who's already struggling to pay bills? They're trying their best, but that's not fair. To create more vacant properties, right? So after years of changing and modifying the bill, being rejected, it finally passed once this new council came in. But see, some of the issues with that is it still changes some of the units. So it's a max out license of $10,000. So per unit, right? It should be per unit. But once you get to a certain number of units, it won't go any higher than that. Who does that benefit? It benefits the individuals who have the money to buy 20, 40 units or own 500 units in the city of Wilmington.
Which is a part of the of how you make sure you indirectly give your boys property so they can take over neighborhoods.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
But you know, and again, the advocates who spoke up wanted to see the bill amended to address things like unsafe and unfit housing, pre-rental inspections for the city of Wilmington. And you saw those who are in the mayor's side of things say no to that, which is sad, but also is not shocking. Other recommendations were to change the civil fine from that $250 and make it smaller. And what happens with a lot of these blighted properties? They're already slumlords.
Right.
They're already not paying their fines. The city should be enforcing the fines that they already have on the books, not creating new ones for people. So that's where this was. Council President Congo and Councilwoman Darby were the two loudest when speaking up against this. This became a key campaigning point for a lot of people who were running for office, who said housing is a human right, and that even if you add this fine onto it, there should be some type of rental withholding program that should be expanded and given the knowledge to a lot of renters, because what's going to happen if the landlord is now getting a $250 fine, who do you think is going to have to bear the brunt of that? The rentee, not the actual landlord. He's just going to tack it on to their rent. So that's some of the things that they wanted to see adjusted to make sure the individuals who live in the city are protected, but they're still addressing the blighted situation.
And what they did was that was all done away with.
Yes.
And what I always enjoy every time we have these shows is to share this ordinance, what should I say, this resolution 00018 was passed finally. It's a new name. They already tried it. I remember under the old council, it failed. Okay, but they came back with a new name and a new title, new representative to do it, and this time it passed. After all you shared, they tried to put some new stuff in it to try to, calm it down and let it be more friendly to even the poor, the black, brown people. But there were 7 individuals who voted. First, the sponsor of this bill. Who was that?
The primary sponsor was Councilwoman Maria Cabrera.
Okay, so on your screen you will see Maria Cabrera. She is the primary sponsor, and in her district she has a whole lot of lighthouse. I'm sorry, she's a large. I always do that, but I'm thinking about where she represents from, really. And then there were 7 votes. Well, she was one of the 7, but there are 7 or 6 more people who voted in favor.
So it was 6 more sponsors, but actually 2 of the others who campaigned against this actually voted for it as well too.
Okay.
So the votes for this was Linda Gray, who had voted for it, who had voted no, who had campaigned on not supporting this because it needed to see all these changes, and she voted for it. Next was Councilwoman Oliver, who originally voted no on this piece before, and it came up during the campaign time, and she also became a sponsor, co-sponsor of the bill when it came back up after the election season. Then you had Councilwoman Michelle Harley, Councilwoman Brigida Fields, Councilwoman Yolanda McCoy, Councilman Chris Johnson, Councilman Nathan Fields, Councilman James Spadola, and Councilwoman Loretta Walsh all supported.
All right, so now we're talking about almost the whole council
Yes,
supported this notion
after the election.
after the election.
Yes.
So we got elected saying what we believe in. And then I'm sorry, before we got elected, we talked about what we believed in. Then we got elected.
Correct.
And basically said, doesn't matter, I need to show my support to whoever to
Right.
get this bill through. As I understand you talking today, this does not help.
No,
If you- go ahead.
it doesn't help because one, it's also not applied to vacant properties.
Okay.
It's applied to those who actually have tenants in it.
Okay.
And that's why I said the fees is going to be transitioned to the rentees, to the individuals who are living in these properties, not the actual landlords who are supposed to upkeep these properties, right? And again, the city of Wilmington has a lot of bad rental units.
Yeah.
You have people who are living in houses right now that don't have hot water, heat. They're living in with black mold in their house and everything like this. I think that's why so many people were more on board with pre-rental housing inspections, because if you truly want to address the issue and protect the renters from getting the brunt of that bill, you find these people before they get tenants in. And also, you should have a provision in the bill that states that if this is raised, if just cause is raised because of these issues and you're fined, you cannot just fix the issue by evicting the rentee. Then it becomes a vacant property. Then it's a different classification.
It's always a way to get around what we want to do, and it's really sad. But I want to say to all of you who are watching us today with the Quiet Storm section, I just wanted you to see some of the hypocrisy. I want you to see some of the things that happens in the city as we continue to vote for our several people. I do not want to suppress the vote and tell you not to vote, but we're going to have to find candidates who represent our interests. That's the whole purpose of the show. We're going to have to make sure we outsmart them. Who are the them? The them are those individuals like the 8th District who say, you know what, we're going to be solid and we're going to make sure that whoever try to run up against us, we'll put people against them so that we can neutralize the vote, especially for at-large seats and the mayor's office. And for those of us who are in districts, who especially in the city where it's 90% African American, we have to make sure who's representing us, and we can't go off of name recognition and people of the old who may have done well in our community and now they got relatives who are doing something. We're going to have to make sure that we are really voting for people who mean us well. And for those of you who may be watching us, you may have some aspiration to run for an office, you really need to go ahead and give it a serious consideration and start getting ready, because I just don't believe that we're going to continue to see and permit this type of behavior where we're promised one thing, something else is done. Matter of fact, we may need to do, and I don't know, Kobe, what you think about it, but we may need to do a report card for our council persons and mayor, their promises versus what they have delivered in their first year. So that's something we may want to really look at and say, you know, if on their first year, this is what you promised. Show us what you're working with, and maybe we can interview them. You know, I don't know.
That sounds good to me.
I'm getting vaccinated against COVID-19. Yes, there could be some short-term side effects from the vaccine, but they go away in a day or two. Those are signs that my body's building protection. It's worth it to avoid serious problems from COVID-19 disease.
And we're back. Well, Kobe, this is the favorite part of the show. We get an opportunity to hear and pick your brain about what's going on in and around the country. What's going on with Kobe's Corner today?
Yeah, so I think the biggest news that everyone's heard, if you've turned on CNN or any news station, was what happened in Virginia and New Jersey.
Yeah.
So in New Jersey, in a very close election, closer than a lot of people expected, Governor Phil Murphy was the first Democratic governor to win re-election in 44 years. Right. And then down in Virginia, former Governor Terry McAuliffe was running to reclaim his seat down there. they have a provision that does not allow anyone to run for a consecutive term. So you have to run for 4 years, take a break for 4, then you can run again.
Interesting.
It's the only state that does it that way in the whole nation. But he was running against a man named Glenn Youngkin. Youngkin is a former CEO of a company with a net worth of almost $440 million, right? He amassed a fortune at the company, and he was self-funded pretty much. The vast majority of his campaign came from his own bank account. In this election, you saw a test of what 2022 is going to look like.
Wow.
Joe Biden is now the president, and Democrats down there, including Terry McAuliffe, still try to use the rhetoric that, oh, he's Trump. That's not going to work anymore.
Yeah.
And you saw it fail.
Yeah.
McAuliffe lost by, as at the time of this recording, by 8 percentage points. They are still counting votes, and it's probably going to get closer. But as of right now, it's 8 percentage points difference. Youngkin did something Republicans thought was crazy, which was keep Trump at an arm's length. He really didn't embrace that full Trump endorsement and stuff like that. Even when Trump came to rally, Youngkin didn't even go to their own rally. Whereas over in Jersey, the Republican nominee welcomed Trump, embraced that rhetoric, embraced the MAGA rhetoric, and he lost.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to see those individuals and those governors in other states that are thinking right now, hey, I'm term limited, or there's a Senate seat up this year. I haven't been the biggest Trump supporter. I can't run. Now we're probably looking at maybe I can run. And that's in Maryland with Governor Hogan, in Massachusetts with Governor Baker, and in New Hampshire with Governor Sununu.
Okay.
Especially New Hampshire usually swings that U.S. Senate. That's a key U.S. Senate seat for us. Why the Virginia race was so important is because we have some major races in 2022. We have Pennsylvania, we have Minnesota, we have Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, Arizona. You need 34 governors to call a constitutional convention. No parties had it. But when that happens, each state gets one delegate appointed by the governor to the convention. At that convention, because it's never happened, the rules are very unclear. But as of right now, many legal minds say that it's pretty much a free-for-all. So anything could happen. They could repeal our right to vote. They could make us 3/5 of a person. And honestly, I think under this GOP, they'll make us 1/3. Or 1/4, even worse, 1/5, right? So that's what we're dealing with right now. That's why these elections are so important for the federal level, but also for local level. Youngkin, the one thing he did embrace was racism. He believes that, one, in our schools, kids should not be taught about Black history. And he used Black history and said it's critical race theory. Let me tell you one thing. Critical race theory, or any theory, is taught at a college level. Black history, like the Black History Bill we passed here, talks about what truly happened during slavery. What were the great inventors? What accomplishments Black people have had? But in his mind, if you talk about success of Black people, you're putting down white people. And he was able to really reach out to that white suburban vote. That same white woman vote that voted for Biden 51 to 49 in 2020 voted for him 57 to 43. So this is what we have to be concerned about, is making sure we're doing things to counteract that. Because it was a small group talking about it on school boards and going up to the school boards, and that grew to winning a governor election. Also, I want to talk about here in Delaware. We just got done our redistricting process. And as of November the 1st, the maps are now final for both the Senate and the House. That means some people got moved into new districts, especially if you live in the Middletown area or if you live in Sussex. There was a lot of movement. In the city of Wilmington, we lost one of our representative districts, the district that was currently held by Representative Gerald Brady.
Interesting.
That district number got moved down Sussex. that district where the people are got divided into the 1st representative district, 2nd, 3rd, 12th, 21st, and 22nd. So people got all moved around. So please look up who now represents you. For the city of Wilmington, our senators really didn't move too much, but in some of the surrounding areas, especially up the Claymont area, your senator moved. You either have Senator Sarah McBride, or you have Senator Kyle Evans-Gay if you live closer to the Fairfax area. So take a look at it. You can find that on Delaware Leg Hall, Delaware Leg Hall's website. Next.
Wait, before you go there, the gentleman who was who made these comments about the Asian community.
Yes.
Do you remember his name?
Gerald Brady.
Oh, so his district got moved.
Yes.
Do you think he already knew that when he said, "I'll wait and spend out my time and then I'll retire"?
No. So
okay.
the plan was to try to keep that district up here, but because he was retiring, and because everyone else was still running, that was the easiest district to move to adjust the population growth down in Sussex and up here.
Okay. Just want to make sure you know I'm listening.
Yes.
All right.
On my way over here today to film, there was a huge announcement, and that was from our senior senator, U.S. Senator Tom Carper, saying that he has heard the call, the cry from organizers, both in D.C. and in Delaware, from organizations such as Black Voters Matter, the Delaware Democratic Black Caucus, Common Cause, Sierra Club here, and he is taking the step to protect our right to vote. So he made an announcement today, and we could show the press release up on the screen, that Tom Carper supports eliminating the filibuster to advance voting rights legislation. That is huge. That is huge. And he said, no barrier, not even the filibuster, should stand in the way of the sacred obligation to protect our democracy.
Absolutely. And I kind of thought that that would have been the one that caused even Joe Manchin to say, you know what, I'm not with this. What I hope, being a senior senator, not just here in Delaware, but he's a senior senator
Yes.
even in Washington, what I hope and trust is that he will be followed.
Yes.
Because Joe Manchin has verbalized that he does not support the breaking of the filibuster. But I hope that if you don't want to do it for a budget, I don't like the fact, because I think he should have did it for that too. But for the sake of democracy, for the sake of African Americans being able to vote without being suppressed, I think maybe Tom Carper will be the door that opens up, that will cause other senators to say, you know what, let's do this now. While he's in, let's do this now.
And this comes one day after Republicans used the filibuster to block the advancement of the John Lewis Voter Rights Act. Senator Carper is a huge supporter of the John Lewis Voter Advancement Act, a huge supporter. He was a huge supporter of the For the People and justice in voting. He's also the prime sponsor of DC statehood.
Okay.
And DC statehood is a critical piece. The United States have added states over the years. We started with 13, now we're at 50.
Yes.
DC would be the only
And they should have representatives.
overwhelmingly black state, but also they should have representation.
Absolutely.
They do not have a voting member of Congress or the Senate. Now, why Republicans don't want it is because DC is so Democratic that it will guarantee 2 new Democratic senators and 1 new Democratic representative.
So if Tom Carper get people to follow him, when I say people, I mean other senators, and they do away with the filibuster,
Yes.
do you think there's some Democrats that you would be concerned with, Democratic senators, who would say, nope, I'm not going to vote for, let's say if we do get rid of the filibuster, I'm not going to vote for D.C. as a statehood?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And it's, I think he is the most mentioned politician on this show, but it would be Joe Manchin.
Wow.
Joe Manchin has already said that he's still on the fence for D.C. statehood.
Wow. What is he for?
He's an originalist, and he believes that D.C. was never intended to be a state. But here's the thing. D.C. at the time was never intended to be a state because only the slaves lived around it.
Absolutely.
So that's why it was okay back then in their minds. We are free now, and we want our vote.
We are? You said we are free?
In some light.
Because there's a thing called...
on paper.
Okay, all right, on paper.
On paper.
All right.
I'll say that.
Yeah.
And the people of D.C. deserve their rights.
Yes.
You know, the tagline on their plates, their car plates, says representation, or no, it says taxation without representation. Yeah. They deserve their right to vote and deserve their right to have someone in Congress to represent them and also to be able to make their own decisions. You saw that they have no National Guard. When the insurrection happened on January 6th, D.C. government, the mayor's office, they were calling for help, but they had to wait for federal approval for that to come in and help.
Yeah, you know, we often talk about various things on the show, but right now we are at this filibuster moment, and I'm just going to really watch and see what's going to happen. And for those of you, you know, Kobe did a very good job of explaining what the filibuster really was all about. It's not a constitutional rule. It's a standard within the House of Congress. I mean, of the senators. But I'm going to be really interested to see what happens, because after the bloodbath of last Tuesday, with Virginia losing that governor's race and almost losing the New Jersey governor's race, I think it's going to wake us up. One commentator said that this was a five alarm fire, and I hope it wakes us up. But if Joe Manchin is really that set on it, I pray that we don't lose the House at midterm, I pray, and that we get a couple more senators, and then we just need to shut him all the way down.
Yeah, and you know, here's the thing with that. The Republicans are using the filibuster to block legislation, to block the Build Back Better Act, and so much more. They're also sitting back and saying, oh, look, we're not in charge. Democrats can't get anything done. They can't deliver. And they're using that for campaigns. Yeah. That's going to be their campaign line come 2022. And if, you know, let's just say it's election night 2022, if the same margins of difference in some of these voting neighborhoods take place, we're going to be in for a rough night. If the same margins that shifted in New Jersey shift on a national level, especially in the congressional races, we're going to lose 44 congressional seats.
Oh, wow.
If the same margins are even worse and they shift like they did down in Virginia, we're going to lose 51 congressional seats.
Wow.
And we'll lose the House. That also will cause us to lose the Senate as well, too.
Yeah, this is really getting interesting, and as we continue to talk to you, our whole zone is to make sure you are well aware of what the state of our country is in. We are and you know, they have not declared this, but we're in a constitutional crisis for real, and it's really sad that the system is not working, especially for black and brown people.
100%.
And if it's something that's going to help black and brown people, it's very much fought. Well, Kobe, you know, we've had a good show today. We got a whole lot more we're going to be talking about as the weeks are to come. I thank, once again, as I do every week, thank you so much for the wisdom and the knowledge that you bring to the table. We miss Brother Jay today, and we hope that he's doing well. This has been a big week for Zion Fair as well as the community. As last week we celebrated Jay Cotwell. I've not seen a person as happy as he was throughout that whole time. You joined us at one of the events at the street the name rechanging of the name, and everything was just done well. I want to say thanks to the county exec, also to two of our county. Well, it was one county person, no, two, because Councilman Hollis and Street were there, and they gave their resolutions. I also want to say thanks to the state level. Thank you to the governor who sent his resolution in, as well as to Senator Brown, as well as to Representative Cook. I had to think real fast, and I want to say thanks to all of you who worked very hard from the city side, not the city side, but from the county and the state side to give us the support that we needed. It was phenomenal. Zion Fair did its tribute at the 11 o'clock, and then at the 4 o'clock, the Quartet World came in, and the place was just bumping and jumping. The whole service was just wonderful. So again, Jay Caldwell, we say congratulations to you. We thank you so very much for the time that we've been together. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Zion Fair Baptist Church. We're going to continue to bring you news regardless of what happens. This is Dr. Curry.
This is Kobe Owens.
And see you later.
Take care, y'all.